All right. So coming back around this week, we're touching on the nervous system, and right before I hit record, we were speaking to why online classes can feel a lot safer for people specifically with nervous systems that can tend to live in overdrive. Um, Often complex trauma we see where the trauma is people are the problem, so it's not necessarily a car accident or a plane crash. It's not one single event that has created the trauma. It's been numerous adverse experiences that have been layered that create other adaptive behaviors in our personality, in our nervous system, in our brain. There has been changes to help us survive. And what we find with people who have had a lot of adversity, and during that adversity, there isn't a strong support system, is we get nervous system dysregulation. So there's no way to really speak to dysregulation without speaking to co-regulation and the importance of co-regulation, which we get to experience by just sitting on the screen. Um, so going back to the idea of doing it on class, why this can be so much more accessible for us is because it can take a lot of energy for those of us with complex trauma or that are in a very dysregulated state to now, after work and cooking and cleaning and doing all of these things, now to get in the car, go somewhere where we really have no idea who's gonna show up, how many people there's gonna be, what kind of mood they're gonna be in, if they're gonna be friendly, if they're not gonna talk to us, and if that means they don't like us. And this is the way that complex trauma can build in our minds over something as simple as, like, going to a class. I have a friend with very complex trauma, and she says to me, like, the idea of going in a group setting and doing weird things with my body is just a no immediately when I consider it. She's like, but if I can sit on a call, turn off the screen, and just follow along, I can do that by myself. That's accessible to me. So those things have just sat with me. So wanting to do this online thing was hoping that for those who had time and they were from their home and they didn't have to drive from wherever, that we could create an environment to practice little things that we could integrate into our life. And I like to teach these little skills so that you can just take one at a time. That's my hope. In our last class, that's what I challenged everybody was try to just take one of the things that we did, one of the techniques that I offered, and find a moment in the week to use that technique. So I won't place anyone on the spot and ask anyone to raise their hands if they did that or not. But just so you know, that's the goal. It's also why I shifted. I'm also a yoga teacher, but if you come to my classes, you won't see me doing traditional yoga where we're just going from posture to posture to posture to posture because I'm integrating techniques that are coping mechanisms and coping skills and things that can help us build a more balanced nervous system. And when we go to these classes and we do posture after posture after posture, it can be hard to figure out how to take a yoga class and the form that it's in and apply that to a moment that you're triggered in life, right? So if you have a hard trigger, it's like, now I gotta go to a yoga class. Let me get my yoga mat. Who's doing a class? How much is it gonna cost? Where am I gonna go? So I changed what I offered when it came to yoga and I started trying this somatic yoga class. And now it's just become a class of somatic techniques to just take out this like big elongated experience that we think we need to have completely separate from the rest of life and to teach these little things that hopefully we can integrate with more ease. So I'm going to just go into a couple of those things that we did last week for those of you who weren't on the call. And they're kind of the fundamentals that I like to go to for myself and in my classes just to open. And as most of you know, tapping for me, we have like EFT, emotional freedom tapping. That's one of my favorite techniques. And then body tapping. So using this flat part of our hand. And that's what I want to open with today, selfishly, because I'm a little tight in this area. So This technique, we're going to use this flat part of our hand. And what I want you to do is come to the meat of the shoulder. And it doesn't matter what shoulder you start with. So staying away from the bone. And I want you just to begin to tap here. And this can be as gentle or as invigorating as you want it to be. You want it to feel nice. So if anything I do doesn't feel good, I encourage you to opt out. This isn't about finding your edge nor pushing your window of tolerance. This is about being comfortable, finding a safe space to just bring awareness into your body. So let's take a deep breath in through the nose and exhale out of the mouth slowly. Let's do that one more time. Inhale through the nose and out of the mouth. Let's just shake that hand out for a moment. Take a deep breath in through the nose and out of the mouth again. And now we're going to do the opposite side. So doing the same. And if you feel like you don't like the fist, you can always just tap with a hand. You can explore both and see which sensation you like more. And if you feel like the tapping overall is just irritating and it doesn't feel good, you can just lay your hand on that space and just welcome the warmth of the hand. So let's breathe into the place exactly where you're tapping, inhaling through the nose and directing the breath, and exhale out of the mouth. Inhale through the nose right to where the hand is tapping, and out of the mouth. But now let's shake both hands. And we're going to shake just for a minute or so here. In our last class, we spoke to how shaking discharges pent up energy in the nervous system. If you want to stand up and shake, you can. If you feel like you have a lot more you want to shake out, but we can just sit here and do it right in our chair. Emma, you're giggling. Like, and now I want you to shake up. And we're really trying to create movement between the shoulders and the heart. We do a lot of armoring between the neck and the pecs. Take a deep breath in. And as we exhale, let's shake down towards the ground. And I'm kind of doing this bouncy sensation with my shoulders. You see computer shaking. Inhale through the nose, using my dress, and out of the mouth. One more breath. Nice, slowing down. And then I want you to shake your chest as if we're Latin dancing. Suavemente, right? We just side to side. And just notice if there's tightness. Does that feel awkward to your body to go side to side? If it does, that's okay. We're just really observing where we're holding any rigidity in the body and just becoming aware, slowing down. Let's inhale the shoulders straight up to the ears. Exhale slowly down, pulling them down. Inhale up and exhale down. Last round, all the way up and down. Beautiful. Now, we touched on in last class that somatically we do this. And what we've learned is that this disconnects our head from our body's sensation. So when we begin to disassociate, this is one of the things that our body is doing to start to disconnect us and desensitize us to our body's sensation. So, as you may notice, the more you get in tune to your body, is if we have anxiety, if we have depression, there are these physical sensations that go along with it. And if we felt that every moment of the day, we wouldn't get much done. We would be totally consumed by sensation. So, once again, the body has this high level of technology that is to serve us in survival, that we can't vilify because it's there for a reason. But sometimes it can cause us a problem if we can't figure out how to shift back out of those protective mechanisms. So that's the grinding the gear example you'll hear me give a lot. I'm going to share my screen for a moment. I have a car alarm going on outside. I don't know if y'all can hear it or not in the back of the video. Can y'all hear it? Okay, thank goodness. All right. So this PDF you see at the end of the series, I'll email this to everyone who came to the class. So last week we went over the vagus nerve. We talked about what it is. It's referred to as the wandering nerve. And this that you see in yellow, this is what your vagus nerve looks like. It starts in the cervical spine, but it has these branches, as you can see, that go into the mouth, that go into the neck, that go into the heart, that go into the organs, that go into the intestines. So they communicate to other parts of the body what it wants it to increase blood flow, to pull blood away from the extremities so the heart can beat faster. So, depending on what gear we're in, it will tell these different parts of our body to do different things. In the polyvagal theory, what we're learning is that a lot of our chronic healthcare issues are coming from being stuck in particular gears. And those changes, those physiological changes, when they get stuck in those gears, it starts to create imbalances and health issues. Uh, we looked at in the polyvagal theory, when we talk about the gears, there can be three main gears that we focus on, but there's also these hybrid states that happen. In an ideal state, the vagus nerve, it's called a ventral vagal, where we feel safe, we feel connected, we feel relaxed and engaged. Mobilized is this more sympathetic function where we need to take action. So on the positive side of mobilized is I need to get up and I need to run errands and I play sports. I need my nervous system to gear up so I can run faster, be quicker, so that my eyes can hone in. So a lot of people, like elite athletes, they function really well in this sympathetic space. But what I see, especially here with the MARSOC Marines that I work with, is they're literally trained to function in this sympathetic state, but then they get stuck and they're kind of always in this sympathetic place. And when we start grinding really high in this sympathetic place, we can see things like the fight or flight kick in. We can become more impulsive. We can see more angry outburst, irritation, agitation when we're grinding really high for long periods of time with that sympathetic. And you think about when you get triggered and you get angry, the flush of heat that kind of moves through the body, the way the blood begins to concentrate into the core of the body. If you really begin to explore the body when it gets angry, notice how you feel heat begin to shift in the body. And literally, what happens is blood is pulled away from our extremities so that it can pump more quicker from the heart center. It wants the muscles to engage, so tighten and engage, constrict. That happens when we're in a sympathetic function so that we can do things like run and fight. And then we have this third gear, which is this dorsal vagal pathway. It's also referred to as a dorsal collapse state. And here we see the opposite of the sympathetic function. Here we see the lower heart rate. We see a frozenness. We see low muscle tone. We see low energy in the body. Here we get emotions like depression, loneliness, helplessness. And when you think about those emotions, it mirrors that nervous system function because normally we freeze when there's nothing else we feel like we can do. We see this in a lot of sexual abuse, the nervous system, the vagus nerve, it will move into this dorsal vagal pathway and create a freeze in the body because the nervous system, the vagus nerve is doing something. It has something called neuroception, and it's perceiving in every moment, am I safe? Am I not safe? And if I'm not safe, then I'm going to change gears. And it's deciding what is the best way for me to survive. And if fighting, if I can be overpowered, that's not going to be the safest way. So now I'm going to shut down and collapse and just freeze. And we see this mirrored in animals, whether they fight, whether they run, or they freeze, they play dead. So we are doing the same things, but we don't have a choice. The nervous system has an inherent wisdom and it's choosing how each moment we should be gearing to survive what it perceives as a lack of safety. So we looked at this last week, ventral vagal, we touched on that. We feel good. We go into nature, loving kindness meditation, spiritual practices can help us move into the ventral vagal. Fight or flight. These are some of the shifts that happen to the physiological parts of our body when we are in that sympathetic state. This muscle tenseness. Now, what we see in complex trauma are people who tend to have what's called armoring. So, places on their body that are permanently hard and tight, and it never goes away. And it can create very long term chronic pain issues, this rigidity in the body. That tight muscle is coming from your nervous system, telling that muscle to tighten. So that's what's so interesting and unique to begin to look at how our mind, how our feeling of safety or non safety is changing the way that our body is on a physical level. So imagine if you were a child and you never felt safe. You were tight as a kid and you just continued to be tight as an adult, you know? And then when we start to grow, there's other ways that we begin to armor. Sometimes we can see fatty tissue in very particular areas. We see this. There was testing done in a weight loss clinic. And one of the big ahas in the somatic field is when they started asking questions about sexual abuse, there was retardedly large amounts of people who they found had been sexually abused. So there was this huge correlation between the armoring. It wasn't hard muscle, it was literally an extra layer on their bodies that they were forming. So they're in the lower belly in particular, we can see a lot of armoring that happens around the womb space with people who have experienced sexual abuse. And it desensitizes that area of the body. It's unconsciously creating space. Now, I know some of us on this call have autoimmune disorders. Always got to talk about autoimmune disorders. It was a big part why I went into somatic work and studying trauma in particular, because I had a doctor when I was diagnosed who was a male, and he told me this is just what happens to women after 30. And I was just so enraged. I went down the rabbit hole, and the only people who could speak to it were the people in the somatic field, Peter Levine, Gabor Mate. They became the people that I learned from who helped me understand more. And they clearly, without a doubt, say that autoimmune disorders are this chronic long period of our lifetime where we have taken external energy and internalized it to such a degree that our own defense system, which is our immune system, which is supposed to protect us and it's supposed to rid our body of bad stuff, it now is attacking the good tissues of our body. The goodness inside of us, it begins to devour, and it mirrors what a lot of people, what we're finding through the studies with autoimmune disorders have, which can be like this freeze, but also fawn, this fawning behavior. We never really express when we're angry. We people please. We have adapted our personality to accommodate other people to such a large degree that we have completely disconnected from our internal compass. Our comfort is no longer at the top of the hierarchy. It is other people's comfort that we have now placed higher than our own. And then the body begins to take a toll on our psyche begins to take a toll on our body. It's very interesting, the autoimmune connection, and that a majority of people with autoimmune disorders are women. We're talking between 80 and 90%, I hear the doctors speak to, are all frickin' women with autoimmune disorders. And I think it's such a testimony to how much the female psyche is still deeply repressed and how much ancestral trauma comes along the genetic line for women in particular. We have lived lifetimes, we still see it, we're still really fighting for our voice and our place. And I think all the autoimmune disorders are still showing us that there's such a large piece of our power that has been taken. And there's still such a big reversal in caring for ourselves versus everyone else. So we're not caring for ourselves, we're caring for other people, we're caring for children, we're caring for husbands, we're caring for animals. And most of us will find a big cause and will invest a lot of energy caring for that cause to a point of exhaustion. And I feel that way. I joke about it because I like to say, like, I'm the epitome of fawning at its finest. I have mastered fawning. It's what I do for a living. But as I heal, I have found a cause to pour my life into, and it's this, as we start to find our voice, and we'll talk about that a lot together because using our voice, making sounds, particular sounds, helps us tone this vagus nerve. And as we find our voice, I have found, especially people with complex trauma, we tend to find our calls to use our voice towards. Sometimes we can mirror that. We can pour our life into the cause and use that as the distraction to still not care for ourselves. So now we're caretaking for others. So I think it's important to talk about this. And I feel like because I do this for a living, that I like to use myself as the example to say, I never will ever have it all figured out. I'm only unraveling my own trauma and hoping to find people to do that with and bringing the cutting edge information to the front as I find it so that we can figure it out together. I think it's great to have a cause, but I definitely still have my autoimmune disorder. So I am just scratching the surface of undoing the magnitude of my own personality shifts. All right. So I had promised that this week we were going to look at attachment styles. We didn't touch on this last week. So as I began on the beginning of the call, which I didn't record that part, we're talking about how we can't really talk about dysregulation without talking about co-regulation because everything that we do, we've learned from somewhere. We have seen, someone has showed us, we have had a felt experience with. And what we're learning about childhood is that our nervous system is a mirror of the three people we're around the most. Who were the three people who raised us? What was their window of tolerance in life? How did they handle anger? How did they express their love? What was the type of touch that they offered? Did you cry it out as a baby? Were you spanked? Were you forced to sit at the table and eat all of your food? Were you grounded and isolated if you expressed your feelings? All of these things have a direct effect on the type of attachment style we will develop. And that attachment style will really create a very large filter for how we perceive other people and how we will navigate our interpersonal relationships. So, this is another deeper part of beginning to go, okay, none of these are permanent titles, right? These words I use, like complex trauma, dysregulation, avoidant, anxious, it's not about allowing a label or taking a label on. It's about finding ways to just understand and discern who we are and how we got here. And how can we use this information to grow and develop? And when we look at these attachment styles, sometimes it can be a little moving. When we start to look at, oh, I have this extreme avoidant attachment because I was actually very neglected as a child and I didn't have my basic needs met, you know. I went through this when I learned about attachment style. I read avoidant and I was like, for sure. Then I read anxious. I was like, for sure I'm that one. And then I read there was like avoidant, anxious, disorganized. I was like, oh my God, I'm the worst one because I'm all of them in one. Like, how is this even possible? And it can feel very personal. And then it can make you feel like, man, I'm really fucked up. Like, how, when you go through all of them, you're like, shit, is secure attachment really real? And what's crazy is they tell us like 40 to 50% of people identify as securely attached. People who come to my classes, none of them identify as securely attached. So we tend to all go, is that a thing? Like, are we making up this idea? But when people do the testing, it really is a very large number. So I'm learning to befriend the idea that there is 40, 50% of the world I have not met and I don't know very well yet, who are out there living securely attached relationships. So looking at this little flyer I made, so attachment style refers to how people think about and behave in relationships. Someone with secure attachment believes their close relationships are trustworthy, whereas someone with insecure attachments tend to distrust or worry about their bond with others. Attachment styles are established in childhood and strongly impact romantic relationships throughout life. I'm gonna take a little drink sip. So, when we look at securely attached, it's kind of like that ideal state. We're in a committed relationship, but we have our own independence. We're attentive, we're affectionate, we're able to accept that from other people. We can handle conflict and we can resolve it. We can move into a repair state. And this is what we'll see with a lot of avoidant style. Often we're missing this skill set to engage in a repair phase of conflict that often wasn't part of our family unit. When we look at avoidant, I feel like avoidant really gets demonized in the social arena. When we see the memes and people talking about the memes, typically we see anxious people talking about avoidant people regarding attachment styles online there. But this is because this ancient style tends to be more fixated on partnership and more codependent. Anxious needs more energy and more affirmation, whereas avoidant needs more distance because their avoidance, there can be a lot of neglect that comes from this. So we had to learn how to regulate by ourselves. And our caretakers, we felt unsafe expressing our needs. We felt unsafe expressing our emotion. So we began to develop an avoidant attachment style, meaning, I can't be that close. Actually, I don't want to share the same bedroom. And I'm this person. My idea, my head, I haven't been in a relationship for 12 years. And in my head, I'm like, I can't imagine having to share my room, my space with someone, having to make space. Like I need to control my whole environment. And this is a hard part about complex trauma is there is an underlining need to control, especially if you had a lot of abuse. You're wanting to avoid the discomfort that you have been subjected to over and over and over again. That's the devastating part. As much as I've beat myself up about having this avoidant attachment style, I know why. My mother was married 6 times. You goddamn right. I have an avoidant attachment style. I'm like, okay, I had enough marriage and relationship situations around me in my life. I don't want to be in any of them because I didn't have securely attached adults. I didn't have positive experiences. But if you do, and this is what they say is if we have securely attached parents and family units, that we learn from that. We learn through seeing securely attached people how to be more secure. So no matter what you identify with your attachment style, we can shift and change. And the people we surround ourselves with can also affect our attachment style. So when we look at this ambivalent anxious, wait, We'll go back to avoidant real quick. Overly rigid, guarded, distant, uncomfortable with emotions and conflict, difficulty expressing needs and wants. So that avoidant part can roll over, not just avoiding relationship, we can see this avoiding intimacy, avoiding sex, because the avoidant often uh, can't express their needs at all. So they can't say, I don't like when you're doing that. I don't like when you're doing this. They just become silent, shut down, and create space, and often don't know how to come back. Even if we recognize it, we don't know how to return back. And we've only seen things end. So in our minds, this is what I find with a lot of avoidant people, there is a complete lack of belief that there is a repairing process. So that becomes a big focus within therapy, talk therapy in particular, is really talking through what the differences are of attachment and how we can move more into secure attachment and noticing secure attachment in people. This ambivalent anxious, the preoccupied style, worries about their partner's availability and commitment, often feels incomplete without their partner, and may seek excessive reassurance or struggle with jealousy, can appear bossy and controlling, argumentative. I'm smiling because I have a friend who's like this and we talk about it all the time. We've traveled and it doesn't matter where we're at. I mean, she's on the phone walking through the jungle with her partner. It's like always right there. We're in another country and her part are in another state, and her partner's ordering us an Uber. And if he wasn't there when she called, Lord bless him, because it will be a big problem. So there tends to be a lot more energy and fighting, arguing. And then we have this avoidant anxious, and this alternates between anxious and avoidant attachment. It stimulates desires and distrusts intimacy with their partner, resulting in contradictory, inconsistent behavior. And this one is really difficult. And we tend to see this one with people who had parents who swung between being very loving, love bombing, and then being completely cold and stonewalling and emotionally withdrawn. So having a parent who gave you both. It wasn't that they just didn't provide for you anything your whole entire life. It was like there was times where they would take you to Walt Disney World, they buy you all the goodies, and then the next week they were beating your ass and they didn't speak to you for 2 weeks. You got this like dramatic swing between the two. So as you see here, it says a tendency towards emotional extremes, difficulty maintaining healthy boundaries, and prone to high conflict relationships. So that gives y'all a little bit more. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. Around the wisdom of the attachment theory and how we can use that just to dig into the meat of us and what are some of our triggers. And if we identify with some of these attachment styles, how can we become more aware uh, and really hone in, begin to learn about secure attachment and learn about it with curiosity so we can start to meet people who mirror more secure attachment cues. And then for me, where I'm at, and like I said, identify with all three, depending on what time of my life I'm in. I've moved through those. I was very anxious as a child, very conflict orientated, and then I became this uh, both, right? Like I want relationships, but then it's very hard to be in them. And now I'm just completely avoidant. So I've just moved through, moved through the three of them. Uh, but I'm learning more secure attachment through my friendships, and that was a big step for me. And I tend to talk pretty openly about my experience with sexual abuse and how that has led me in a period where I don't even want to think about it because I get so dysregulated thinking that I have to share my body or close proximity to men. Even though in my mind I may want that sometimes, my body has very big reactions. And so, this avoidant place, I'm learning to befriend it and find healthy attachment through my friendships in my social circle instead and allow that to be my first building block. And I encourage other people to do the same. You know, when you have abuse, it's not always clear what is triggering you and what keeps you in this spinning state, because our body holds most of the memory. We talked about in the last class implicit memory. So our brain can only hold so much information, and then the rest is stored as a sensory experience in our body. So, with things like sexual abuse, what a lot of women experience is armoring in the body, and then sex becomes really painful, and we don't know why. And we go to the doctor and we ask the gynecologist, and we're like, why don't I enjoy sex? Why am I not getting wet? All the questions that come up, except the question, were you ever sexually abused or sexually assaulted? Because the armoring, we're talking about the cue of the nervous system, right? When we're in danger, to tighten, to bear down, to protect itself. Well, when we have had these experiences, it gets locked in that state. And so just like having a tight neck, those parts of our body do the same kind of tightening. And it takes a long time to undo, and a really safe partner with a whole lot of patience to help people like me to undo all of that armoring. And really, our nervous system just needs to feel safe for a long time. So you can't have a partner who's going to rush you in a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks into an act that hijacks your body, because it doesn't matter. Right now, I can be extremely attracted to someone and in my mind be having all the fantasies about what I want to do. But the moment they touch my body, it goes into a trauma response. So when we have trauma, we have to take everything slow. We need to take our time. And whether we're talking about sexually, if we're talking about dating, if we're talking about getting to know our friends, we need to take our time. We need to find people that we can feel safe enough with to say, hey, I take a long time to really unravel and show myself to people because I've learned this about myself. And this is where therapy is really powerful, where the somatic work we're doing, these kind of conversations can be really powerful because it helps us reparent ourselves and retrain ourselves to be honest. And I say this about complex trauma. Uh, I remember the first time I read it, I was so offended. It said, you know, one of the hallmarks of people with complex trauma is they're extreme liars in some form. And I'm like, then I must not have it because I'm not a liar. I'm honest and I'm genuine. And then they were like, oh, no, like you're an emotional liar. Like it's almost certain you don't tell anyone how you actually feel when things happen. And I was like, oh my God, I'm a liar. I rarely ever tell anyone when I'm extremely triggered, angry, upset. I cover. And it's making me emotional now just saying it. It's a vulnerable statement to realize, like, oh, I am a liar. It doesn't look like the little boy who becomes a liar because he's afraid of mom. And men do that a lot. They make up lies, and us women are like, why do you just lie about the dumbest shit? Well, they learned that as a kid, right? Like it's just easier to lie and avoid mom getting disappointed or angry or getting your ass beat. But we, people pleasers, fawners, which these are survival responses, we become emotional liars. So it becomes really difficult to tell the truth in the moment. And even if someone asks us directly, we will freeze because such a large part of us doesn't feel safe actually telling the truth because we were so scared at some point in our life that if we did tell the truth, we would lose a relationship. Relationship is the most important thing as a human being. It's what makes us safe. It's what makes us secure. It's what helps us develop touch, being held, being rocked, being nurtured. Uh, it is what helps us learn nervous system regulation. That's co regulation. So if we don't have humans and we don't have relationship, we don't have the things that allow us to experience regulation and safety. So we're going to do a little tapping practice after saying all of that really deep stuff and being so vulnerable together. The tapping statement is, even though I accept myself. And so we were just talking about attachment. So if you feel like anything came up for you in that attachment, I'm going to say, even though I'm avoidant, I accept myself. And maybe you identify with a different one, or maybe Even though I'm a liar, I accept myself. I'm gonna do that one. I'm gonna do that one because it packs a punch for me. And I want you to just find your word. Last week, I offered up the example that when people go to holy places, they bring things to the altar and said, how can we do that in our somatic practice? What are we bringing to the altar to our tapping practice today? What's the word? And we begin our tapping as we find that word, we're going to tap this karate chop place of our hands in the statement, even though I'm a liar, I accept myself. And we're going to do that 3 times. And you just replace my word with your word. Even though I'm a liar, I accept myself. Even though I'm a liar, I accept myself. And now we're going to tap the top of our head. Even though I'm a liar, I accept myself. And now the third eye. Even though I'm a liar, I accept myself. And the temples. Even though I'm a liar, I accept myself. And under the eyes, even though I'm a liar, I accept myself. And under the nose, even though I'm a liar, I accept myself. And under the chin, even though I'm a liar, I accept myself. Under the collarbone, even though I'm a liar, I accept myself. In the side body or the rib cage, even though I'm a liar, I accept myself. And the opposite side. Even though I'm a liar, I accept myself. And the crown of the head, going again for another round. Even though I'm a liar, I accept myself. Third eye, even though I'm a liar, I accept myself. And the temples, even though I'm a liar, I accept myself. Under the eyes, even though I'm a liar, I accept myself. Under the nose, even though I'm a liar, I accept myself. And the chin, even though I'm a liar, I accept myself. Under the collarbone, even though I'm a liar, I accept myself. In the side body, even though I'm a liar, I accept myself. The opposite side, even though I'm a liar, I accept myself. And then we'll just place our hands over our heart. And maybe close the eyes or almost close the eyes, and just holding the resonance of that statement with you. As we tap in that statement, we're just accepting all parts of ourselves, the most human, the most difficult, the most hurt and harm parts, just welcoming it to be part of the whole, being compassionate of the adaptive behaviors that can show up as our personality and our reactions. All right, now we're going to bring our hands to our lap. Or actually, I think we did. You can do your legs or you can do your arms. And we're going to do this bilateral tapping at your own pace. If you do it on your legs, you're just doing this situation. So just play with it and see which one you like most. We did the legs last time. I'm going to do the arms this time. And we're going to do a few rounds of the bumblebee's breath as we do this. When we make the sound of a bumblebee, it vibrates the vagus nerve. So we'll inhale together, and as we exhale, I want you to make that sound with me, and we'll do that for a few rounds. So we'll inhale through the nose. Mm. Mm. 嗯，2 more times. Mm. Last round, slow down the tapping. Mm. Now just tapping. And we'll just relax the arms into the lap or resting the hands in the lap. And let's just drop the right ear towards the right shoulder, opening through the left side of the neck. And as you breathe in through the nose, allow the breath to move along the left side, allowing the shoulders to drop down away from the ears. Inhaling to center. Exhaling, dropping that left ear now, opening through the right side. And we're going to shift the chin towards the chest, beginning to make slow, big circles with the head and neck. Pausing if you feel any particular area pulling, and just breathing into that space for a moment. Using the breath as a tool to create a change in the body. These tight areas restrict blood flow and restrict oxygen from getting into these spaces. So as we stretch and we tap and we hum, we're increasing blood flow. We're increasing the delivery of oxygen and minerals and vitamins needed. And we'll go the opposite way. We'll make our way back to center. And just start to flutter the eyes back open, coming back to the screen. Now, this is going to conclude this part, so I'm going to stop recording so we can open up sound and y'all can talk. Next week for class, I will be bringing in some very specific points of the body. We're going to stimulate pressure points in the body that help deal with stress, just so you know what's on the agenda for next week for those that are watching the video. All right, I am going to stop recording.